This program includes graphic special effects. Parental discretion is advised.
One's mind is an ocean, completely vast and wide for just a single conscience. There's so much room that maybe another, with malicious intent, lurks below. Split personality is a very serious disorder, which is a shame. Most horror films cover it in an antagonistic light. So with the subject we're covering today, I understand it's completely tasteless, gross, and straight up vile. You probably expect me to vomit out some sort of philosophical meaning on why this gore vehicle is important, on why the violence smothers the screen to where we only see red. There has to be a reason this was made, right? Well, no. I didn't cover this to try and beat it over anyone's head, that there is a deeper meaning or understanding at the end. I completely understand gore is not for everyone, so if you are the squeamish, I suggest you leave now before a maniacal saw-wielding killer chases you next. So with that being said, today I decided to cover a French horror film called High Tension, or its original title, or its European title, Switchblade Romance. You somewhat can appreciate the film being upfront with its ugliness. Let's dive into this blood pool filled with guts and misery. Let's just hope you can hold your breath long enough. High Tension is a slasher, splatter horror film directed by Alejandra Aja, starring Cécile de France and Mai Wen. It was released in France around June of 2003. It then premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. It was then picked up by Lionsgate Films, who at the time also bought the first Saw movie when it premiered. The film was set in France, but was shot entirely in Romania due to budget reasons. It finished within 36 days of filming. According to director Alejandre, 4 different locations were used for the character Alexia's house, and the locations used for the exterior shots was a rundown mill. The scenes involving the woods was particularly draining for both actresses, as both were barefoot and the weather was very cold. Cécile trained with a legit Thai boxer to get in the right physical peak for the film, and you can tell with the amount of stunts she had to do throughout. The making of the film proved very difficult, and its reliance on the graphic violence didn't help much either. The scene where a good Samaritan is viciously slaughtered by a concrete saw caused the fake blood to splatter all over the camera lens. The director, however, loved it so much he kept it in. Though it was originally cut from the theatrical release, it was then restored on the DVD. With its putrid tone on violence, it became the leading catalyst for a movement at the time called the New French Extremity, with movies like Frontiers, Inside, and Martyrs. Unlike those, High Tension would get the full brunt of the scrutiny strangely. When it released in the US around 2005, the film was redubbed in English and heavily recut to avoid an NC-17 rating. The jaw-dropping amount of gore was designed by a well-received Italian horror artist, Gianetto Di Rossi, and his makeup team. And I couldn't praise the gore effects enough. It's sick and disgusting. At the time of its release, and even nowadays, the film receives a large amount of negative reviews, mainly dealing with its subject matter on what I mentioned earlier with split personality disorder. Its gratuitous amount of violence that borders on the line of torture porn, and its overall depressing world where everyone is a meatbag, waiting to be popped in an overkillish glory. To me, that's kind of strange, since the movie wears this on its sleeve. The film follows 2 friends, as they end up staying a night at Alexia's parents' place, in, you guessed it, the middle of nowhere. That same night, a mysterious trucker breaks in and murders everyone brutally, instead of our 2 leads, with Alexia being kidnapped. We follow the majority of the film with Cécile's character as she tries to get help and eventually has to face the crazy killer herself. Between that amount of time, we see some hints of metaphors with her psyche, which by the end peels off like a gory flesh mask to uncover she is in fact the killer the whole time. Now, this twist, as cliche as it is, pissed off so many people. I'm talking about straight up breaking the movie for them, to where whatever they liked was instantly overshadowed by this last minute realization. And it may cause some inconsistencies to the plot, but we are following an unreliable narrator to begin with. So saying that you have to suspend your disbelief in a review is kind of ridiculous, because the film is batshit. It's a bloody ride filled with pessimism around every corner. If this twist didn't present itself, it would have been anticlimactic compared to the rest of the movie. Plus, the idea of her brutalizing herself internally with this killer trucker fixation is more frightening than being chased by a stereotypical slasher villain throughout. Its release was swarmed with many detractors, mainly an author, Dean Koontz, whose novel shared an almost identical plot to the film, with many accusing it of plagiarism. I haven't read the book myself, but apparently the director read the book prior to filming and has said it influenced his idea of the film. Which, I mean, come on, there's the old saying for a reason. Imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. Koontz eventually didn't pursue a lawsuit against the filmmakers, claiming on his website that he found the film so puerile, so disgusting, that he didn't want the association with it that would inevitably come if he pursued an action against the filmmakers. But I'm sure this is a glorified compliment to the director and the film's crew, as it was no different than the reviews that poured in over the years. The film seems to struggle even nowadays, with most of the reception being very mixed, which is a slight improvement over its complete evisceration nearly 20 years ago, which, holy cow, is a long time. Besides seeing it occasionally at the rental store and viewing its trailers repeatedly on the Saw 2-disc unrated cut, I finally got to see the film in its uncut glory with my friend around high school, and to my surprise, we both really liked it. Now, I'm not going to die on a hill for this slasher feature, even though I spent several hours writing my thoughts down for this video. It's far from perfect, and trust me, it has its issues, but it's by no means a horrible movie. Maybe horrible in its depiction of violence, but that's the reason of the film. Among many of the new French extremity movies, this is my personal favorite. That's because while bathing in its own blood, it still manages to keep you engaged with its two main actresses, and hoping they make it past the night. And even though the trucker is really non-existent, I found him very frightening, especially seeing his silhouette running through the woods with a running power saw. Regardless if this video changes your mind, my goal was just to discuss this movie, as I've been meaning to for some time. And hey, if you still don't like it, that's fine. And if I somewhat soften your stance on it, then I appreciate you listening to a horror nerd gripe for a bit. I really think it's underappreciated, and hopefully it gets more recognition in the genre soon. I mean, who can't admit with a bloody Cecile holding the concrete saw like a boss isn't badass? But anyways, thanks for listening. And if your friend decides to stay a night with you, make sure you get papers on their mental evaluation beforehand.